Welcome back to the Intercooler podcast, everybody. The podcast powered by car finance specialist JBR Capital. This is episode 278 with Dan Prosser and Andrew Frankel. And we've got a guest in the studio today, David Pook. Hello, David Pook.
Hello. Welcome
to our podcast studio. Thanks for coming in. David Pook, that name isn't going to be familiar to a lot of people listening to this. Your work will be. You are a chassis engineer, a ride and handling engineer. Are those the words you would use, or would you say something a little bit different?
Vehicle dynamicist is how we
vehicle
dynamicist.
Wow. Okay. And what I want to do in this episode is find out a little bit more about you, but also discuss the ways in which engineers appraise cars, assess cars, and see how that compares to how journalists appraise cars. I know Andrew's a bit nervous about this one. You're worried that we're going to come out of this looking like a bunch of fly-by-night idiots, aren't you?
The thought had occurred. Yes.
Okay. Well,
largely because we are.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? So, David, people might well be aware of the work that you do with Alpines these days. Yep. With Life 110, your Alpine tuning company. You've done a lot of tuning work on A110s. And now the A290. I think you've recently taken delivery of your A290 and you're sort of working out what you can do with it.
That's right, yeah. So I've only had it about 4 weeks.
But,
I set up Life 110 2019 and it's kind of evolved into what it is not by accident, but not by really knowing what I was doing to a certain degree. Because my background before that is vehicle dynamicist, as I said. So I did that since university and probably before, so actual vehicle development and evaluation that we'll talk about, but the science behind how it makes the car better.
Just before we do that, I'm really interested so you decided to set up this business and the focus of this business is the A110, and I'm just really interested in why you chose that car, because to us, if there was a car which really didn't need an awful lot of improving, the only 10 out of 10 car we've ever had on the Intercooler, and yet you chose that car. Was there something about that car which you just thought, well, it's fine, but I can see how it could be a whole lot better?
I would not say it was that strategic, no. I bought the car because it was actually because of Harry Metcalf, funnily enough. So I was working with Harry from an SVO perspective.
You were at JLR for a long time.
That's right, JLR for 19 years. And so we were doing high performance SVO, JLR products. And the lightest of that was 1750 kilos, I think.
Yeah.
And
well, that would have been what,
Project 7.
Project 7,
and 8. Well, Project 7 actually, you're right. Project 7 slightly lighter. But, so I was sitting in the canteen with Harry, and he said, "Oh, have you driven an A110? This, that, and the other?" And I was like, "No, it had kind of slightly passed me by at launch." And he said, "Oh, well, I weighed it, and it's like 1,100 kilos." And I was like, how have they done that? Because we were weighing Caymans at 1,450 kilos.
Yes.
So I became sort of hooked by it at that point, and then I wanted to know more. So because I was leaving JLR anyway, I decided I had to have one just to understand what it was and what it meant to be a lightweight car and how they'd done it. So I bought one without driving it. I just bought it. Okay. And I had one eye on, could this be a business opportunity or not? Because I had my own business itch I wanted to scratch. So I drove it for the first time, having already bought it. And I remember driving it down the motorway after about 20 miles thinking, I think that there's something I can do with the jauntry to improve steering around centre and this, that and the other. Yeah. So it was forming in my mind because the beauty of the A110 is the standard car is very, very in a certain place. For a sports car, it's at one end of the spectrum, isn't it?
Yes.
I would say. So anything I do has to move it away from that, but actually there's lots and lots of scope to do that. Mm-hmm. So the products for it evolved by me owning one and thinking, how would I make this better? What would I want to do with it?
So that car became your test bed, presumably?
Yeah, so that original car I still own.
Yeah.
So I bought it with 1,000 miles on the clock, and it's now done 36,000.
Yeah.
So I used it as my everyday car for 2 years.
Yeah, but also presumably put all the bits on
That's
it
right.
that came along and just used it as your development hack.
Yeah. So everything I sell, I've developed through my own cars.
Yeah.
Because that's just how I used to doing it, from my engineering background. So it just evolved that way, and I launched my first product a week into lockdown or before lockdown. It was like the worst timing you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, we did that with the podcast.
we did that with the podcast. Yeah.
But it's kind of like people helped me understand what a brand meant and how to grow a brand at the same time and always what it stood for and the rest of it. And it's grown from there, really.
When I check the classifieds for A110s, and I do this a lot, and you read through the adverts, I swear every other advert says Life 110 upgrades, Life 110 gear shift paddles, Yeah.
I think the market penetration I've got, for the UK has been, pretty good, really, because there's still only, 1,300 cars?
Yeah. Is that what it is?
I think so. I think that kind of volume.
And are you shifting stuff overseas as well?
Yeah. Everywhere, yeah. So France is the biggest market.
France, so for you, France is bigger than the UK?
No, France is the biggest market for Alpine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
As a percentage terms, it's enormous. Like, it's 75% of the cars they made are still in France.
Is it?
Yeah, it's huge.
Wow.
And so I sell plenty to France, but per volume of car, my penetration isn't as good because I'm not French. There's plenty of people in France doing a similar thing.
Oh, they're really? So you're not the only person who's tweaking those cars?
No, I was one of the first.
Yeah.
And I think that the market's kind of grown as a result of people wanting to tweak their A110s, actually. I'm surprised. I think I'll be surprised now how many people buy the car with a plan to change it slightly. Because you think when they launched it, you think it was a purist car where people would buy it and leave it alone.
Yeah.
And actually, a huge percentage tweak them.
People love to fiddle, don't they? Do you know what? David Pook left a comment underneath, I guess it was his own article.
Remind me who David Pook is?
The bloke who led the development of the Alpine A110, one of our writers. So he wrote a story, and in the comments he mentioned that he's looking at buying, and I assume this is out there in the public domain because he's written it in the comment.
Well, there will be.
He's looking at buying an A110 and upgrading it himself and doing all the things that he wished he could have done back in the day.
There you go.
Which is fascinating. I can't wait to see if he does do that. So let's briefly A290. So you've had it for a few weeks. Does it feel like an Alpine to you? So we know it's based on the Renault 5. The A110 is a bespoke, clean sheet sports car. So it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
But have they managed to give it some sort of Alpineness?
I think that's a hard sell, a bit of a hard sell. It's got... I can see where they're going with it from a hot hatch perspective. The actual... the ride and handling is quite well judged, I would say, for a hot hatch. Mm-hmm. It's not too soft, but it's not kind of like overly firm. But it's definitely hasn't got it's definitely a firmer, more hot hatch character than any A110 is, for example. In weaknesses, its steering is its biggest weakness from my perspective. So actually, I read that what Steve wrote on the app.
Yeah.
So like torque steer is like bananas. Like, full throttle out there, any kind of junction, and the car's wriggling all over the road. That's like that's interesting. And then the steering's just not quite sharp enough for what it's trying to be. I don't think.
So you can do something about that.
Yes, but it depends how big it is.
Yeah. So, but you can sharpen up the steering, and far from that inducing more torque steer, you could actually reduce the torque steer.
Yeah.
Do you think there is such a thing? And anybody who's ever driven a powerful front-wheel drive car will know what we mean by torque steer. It's that sort of tugging at the wheel you get when the front drive shafts, which are also steering the car, are kind of like unable to cleanly transmit the power. Do you think there is ever such a thing as desirable torque steer, because it is at least a form of interaction between the driver and the car? If it's gentle and not
potentially,
terribly,
as a signature,
yes,
of what's happening,
a sort of signal that you're kind of pushing the car a bit.
Yeah. I think you need some of that.
Yeah.
And what the 290 does is that it will steer itself, as in how I would describe it. So you accelerate and the car starts steering itself. Mm-hmm. So you try to counteract that and say, don't do that.
Yes.
But then it does something else. So you chase it, mm-hmm. and that's the worst. That's a talk steer or any such behaviour at its worst.
That's like my toddler. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So you can't just correct it once and then it behaves. You're constantly chasing it all over the place.
Yeah. So the only way you stop that is by coming back out the throttle.
Yeah.
So I've already tweaked the front geometry to try and kind of like understand where it's coming from. So I've made it better. I'm pretty sure I understand what the root cause is, and it might be an expensive fix as a part change, and that might be why Alpine didn't do that. Because. Yeah. They've got to put a business case together at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, but it gives me something to do. And the ride height's quite high, so just from a pure hot hatch visual perspective, I think it will, ride up, down, wheels out.
You've not started marketing any A290 products yet because you're still going through the car and figuring out what needs to be done.
That's right, yeah. So I want to, I don't want to be first to market for the sake of it. Mm. I want to actually create something that's a useful upgrade, improvement that would suit a customer that's living with a car. So I've had a number of social media messages saying, what can you do about the torque steer?
Have you?
Yeah, straight away.
Interesting.
I've had a few people saying, well, steering's a bit woolly and disconnected. What can you do about that? So I know that's there straight away. I've had a number of people, which I probably started saying, I can't believe there's no cup holder.
Yeah, so that's your big thing at the moment, isn't it?
But it's not necessarily my expertise to fix. But it is one of those things where I've twice now I've gone on the way to Goodwood. I was driving the car to Goodwood really early in the morning. I thought, I'll just grab a coffee, and of course, I had to hold it.
Yeah, which is actually dangerous.
In a modern car, it's a bit of a miss, isn't it?
Definitely.
So you have to. There must be a decision process as to why they did that. And they've definitely got an A110 style signature on the centre console. But there is space to do something. You just got to decide it's important, I think.
Are you allowed to talk about the non-Alpine work that you do?
Probably not.
Okay, all right. Well, gloss over that.
Yes, I do consultancy vehicle dynamics.
Yeah.
Out in the bigger world. So that was something I didn't intend to do, but it came along because of a demand, and then it's sort of grown into a bit of a big thing.
Yeah.
So I have to deal with that at the same time at the moment.
Okay. So let's get stuck into the nitty gritty of all this stuff. Let's go all the way back. Let's talk about a rookie engineer out of university. How does he or she learn to appraise a car? Say you're working for an OEM, Jaguar Land Rover. Is there a sort of specific process? Is there a whole...
There's only tuition.
Yeah.
Does anybody teach you what to do?
Yes, is the answer. So if you think about it in evaluation terms, I actually looked up evaluate as a dictionary definition, and it's to form an opinion and give value, I think is what it said. So sort of effectively, and that's really important because we're giving an opinion and we're making some judgment. So when you evaluate a car, that's what we're doing. We're giving an opinion based on the subjective driving or some data or whatever, and then you're saying that's good or bad. What I think I've learnt is that when it comes to vehicle evaluation, which is a big part of a vehicle dynamicist's job, because that's how you decide what's good and bad. It's not something that everyone can do. It is a skill. So I think that by the nature of the job the three of us do, it's a skill we have.
Yes.
Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be able to do the job we do. So to evaluate something is like a skill in itself, and you can teach, quite a lot of that. And I think you are reliant on some kind of a natural ability or something.
I was going to ask
to say, because I've so leaping forward, I've tried to train other people, in terms of vehicle evaluation, or you work with certain people, and there's definitely, you'll find that some people are better at it than others.
Yes.
It's just
so you
just
can't
a skill.
So presumably to do it at a properly professional level for a major OEM where the conclusions you reach will make a material difference to the car. You can't learn that. You can't learn all of it. You need to have a certain sensitivity. What do you need? Do you need to be the world's greatest driver, or do you just need to be able to feel what a car is doing? What's the stuff you can't learn that you still need to be able to do?
I think it's partly a mindset, and it's partly, as you say, like your feel or however you're perceiving what's going on. Some people are better at that than others. So you find people will want to do the job, and then you'll find people that are naturally good at it, and you might train them up, and then you'll find other people that need more work, but they still are trained and they get to being a good vehicle, evaluator.
Yeah.
And it's something that, if you think about it, because it's not driving and evaluation or evaluating a vehicle are two different things. So you can drive anywhere and think, I've no idea how I got here or what the car did. Yeah. I just got here. But the flip side of that is that you can evaluate cars all the time. Like you can, sometimes, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, where you're, because you do it so often. I've done it once where I've taken my own car that I know well, and it's full of the family and luggage, and we're going on holiday, and I'm driving down the motorway, and I'm doing this. Yes. What are you doing? It's like, well, have you noticed how the steering has changed because of all the mass and this, that, and the other? And everyone's like looking at you.
Yeah.
Oddly, but it's like one of those things you can't let go.
I'm exactly the same.
So, but it means that you're constantly practicing the skill at the same time.
Yeah.
And on that subject of feel, actually, that's an interesting topic, because so at the weekend I was not working. So I had a driver using terms such as, I feel the car turns in too aggressively, doesn't have enough rotation mid-corner, understeer on exit, not riding the bumps well on the rear axle. And they're all described in normal driver language from a feel perspective, but he's talking about a radio control car.
Oh.
So there's no physical connection. His only observation is eyesight. So if you think about it in those terms, feel is not necessarily like a physical contact or a movement. It's like you go up a level and say it's a perception of.
Yeah.
I asked the vehicle to do something,
yes.
And what did it do?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, a pilot can't fly in the fog without the instruments.
No.
Because you can't.
Yeah.
And if you shut your eyes as a passenger and you don't know where you've gone, you could probably have an idea of saying, well, I think you went left and right and you might have braked. But actually you couldn't accurately know where you've gone. So you're hugely reliant on, eyesight as part of that evaluation skill.
I was once asked by, I think it was Autocar, to write a story, and it's basically entitled What is Handling? And I had to boil it down and boil it down and boil it down to a sentence. And I think that sentence in the end went, the ability of a car to do what its driver asks it to or expects it to. Because any deviation from that, through all those things you're talking about, turning too aggressively or oversteer or understeer or anything else, if that's not what you're wanting it to do, then that is adding to your workload. That is reducing your level of confidence in the car. And that is, to me at least, degrading the handling. I mean, is that kind of somewhere how you'd describe it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think for handling specifically, yeah. I split them into like what I would call, just because of terms we used to use at JLR, a body-induced input, and that's an external force. So you're driving down the road, ride is external, the car's going over bumps.
It's reacting to...
There's cameras on the road, there's side winds.
Yeah.
So the car is reacting to external forces as one. And then the flip side of that is the car reacting to driver demand. So the driver is saying, do this, and the car does, well, the output is what you expect.
Yeah.
Because you never say, well, I can see the corner, therefore I'm going to steer 15 degrees on the steering wheel and assume I'm going to go around the corner. Your brain doesn't work like that whatsoever.
Yes.
You steer the amount based on your experience to date.
Yes. That
means you're going to go around that corner. And you steer, you think, well, I think I need to steer this much.
Yes.
And the car doesn't go around the corner as you expected. And you're like, well, so you have to adjust mid corner or all those things. And then, and that comes back to exactly what you said. Like I think I would describe that as like, almost like linearity as a term, where, when you drive a car, for the first time, and I think you'll experience this even more than me because of the number of cars you drive, you'll negotiate a few bends, especially on a road and you're a few speeds, and your brain has extrapolated what it thinks the car's going to do in all these situations that you haven't yet experienced.
Yeah.
So your brain is straight away building a map of this is how this car behaves. So, and then you go and like reaffirm that. You drive it further and you think, oh, I did that corner and it did what I thought and it did what so very quickly you've built a map. This is how the car's going to drive based on these few inputs I've done, and it keeps doing what you expect. And that's what I would say is a linear car.
Yeah.
And then if you've got a car where it did one thing at low speed and you think, well, that means at high speed it's going to do this, and it does something completely different.
Yeah.
And you're like,
does that mean it's a bad car, or is that just a specific sort of car? Perhaps it's optimized for a certain type of road and driving.
I guess it depends on the goal, isn't it? Because some manufacturers, especially the German manufacturers, in high-speed terms, I'm thinking Autobahn, they can make quite an agile car, and then they'll do things with the chassis and aerodynamics, which means they turn into the world's most dull, unresponsive cars for cruising down the Autobahn.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it's changed its behaviour, but that's what they want.
But do you think that? And I say this because the only tuition I've ever received was me and my colleague from Autocar, this was 30 odd years ago, went to Hethel and had a couple of days being taught by John Miles, the famous XF1 driver and Lotus chassis guy, how to do what he does. And he always maintained that you can get a very good idea of everything a car is going to do without ever doing more than 20 miles an hour. And that fundamentally how the car responds at 20 miles an hour is, or at least should be, how it's going to respond at any speed you're doing. Is that still the case?
I think probably less so nowadays, just because of the amount of tech in cars and things we've learned since. So you can manipulate a car much more than you ever used to be able to.
Yeah.
But in general, it's definitely what you want. So in my mind, what he's described is what you want.
Yeah. Yes.
I've driven this car at 20 mile an hour and I think, I like this. And then it does what I want, and then you want it to just keep doing what you want.
Yeah.
That's what I desire in a car.
He did say to me, what you need to do is get in the car, any car that you're testing, and go to your nearest roundabout and put in an input that will take you round that roundabout, and then don't change it, and see whether the car is capable of following that for the entire duration of the roundabout. And he said, and this was a long time ago, so maybe they're better now, but he said almost no cars will. Almost no cars will actually do a full lap of a roundabout without needing some kind of correction, because they're not going where you're pointing them.
Yep.
Which just struck me as being bizarre, but then I went out and did it, and time and again you get in something and you go, and you'd set an input which would start it going around the roundabout, but by the time you got halfway around, it wasn't where you wanted it to be anymore. Which I just thought was extraordinary.
Yeah, so I think cars are better at that these days.
Sure.
How I would break down that kind of like behaviour in the linearity terms again, there's a few sides to it, which is how much the car steers per fixed hand wheel input. Mm-hmm. So you steer 15 degrees, you get a certain attack, let's say. You steer 30, you get more, so you build up a picture of, when I steer this much, the car does
that much,
and you get incremental gains. So that's in pure angle. You've then got speed of input. So I've steered quickly and the car responded quickly. I steer slowly and the car responds slowly. So the faster you steer, the car keeps up with you, because you can get one of the biggest things you'll find is that's where linearity falls down. So you can drive quite slowly, and the car does what you want, and you steer quickly, and there's like everyone stops and thinks, and then the car responds after that.
Yes.
So that's the second term. And then the third part is what you've just described, where you've steered and you've left the car alone, and it suddenly speeds up.
Yeah.
What will happen there? Or it suddenly slows down, so you've got, it's like this, and that's the big map that the brain is building just from a few inputs.
Yeah.
And I think that it's something we just do naturally.
Well, that's the question. So does it matter if it is if you got to the point where, which I think we're all at, anybody who drives regularly, is that actually you are correcting the car all the time, but not even aware of it because it has become such an innate, such natural thing to do. Does it actually matter that a car isn't going where you're pointing it, and that the car is fundamentally not producing reliable outputs to your inputs?
I think it depends on the car and who it's like for, and who the customer is, and what the brand is, what the brand wants to have as a core value. Because I find, do you find cars, when you live with a car, it has like what I would term a natural gait, where you just get in it and it goes along at a pace where
completely,
it
absolutely,
just settles down, and you just drive along. So we used to have a Discovery 5, and that car happily just lolled about. I never drove it fast, aggressive at all. It didn't want to.
Yeah.
But then it was brilliant at what it did. It just had a natural speed of the way it did things. And you could say that in pure terms of how fast it responded and doing different things, it was not as good as that as another car, but it didn't matter.
It's not what it's for. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get in...
and you could make it a lot worse if you made it a lot more reactive.
Yeah.
That's not what you want from a Disco 5.
Absolutely, yeah. Defender's similar, we've just... we replaced a Defender with a Range Rover Sport last week, and, the character shift is instant. But then that's what you want.
Yeah.
So I jump out of my A290 into a Defender, which is the most extreme example, and I'm just getting off the drive thinking, oh, it's just like creeping off the drive, just gradually creep off the drive, whereas the A290 is off we go, so, and that's just a throttle characteristic, as one example. So the cars find their natural gait. The Panda 100 HP,
cracking car. You got one of those?
Yes, I've got one, and that is you can feel the car's frustrated if you're not wringing its neck. It's if you drive it slowly, it bounces around and it wants to rev, and you just have to get on it, and then it's happy. So
all I would say, back to the point that I was making about does it matter if you're not aware that you're doing it. So let us say you're driving a car and you are constantly correcting it, but to not any great amount, and you're expecting to do it, and so you're not even conscious of it. The moment you get into a car where you don't have to do that, that's when you notice it.
Yeah.
That's when you don't notice the cars you have to correct. You notice the cars you don't have to correct. And that's when you get those sort of car park moments where, I remember having this with the A110 when I first drove it, just driving the car and with things like Lotus Elise and that sort of thing. And you just sort of feel, this just feels right. And when you actually boil it down to what it is about that car, which has suddenly made you feel so at home and so confident and so happy in it, it's because actually it's doing what you want it to do. And it's not like cars the shining example of how not to do it is the Alpha 4C, which you were always correcting, even in a straight line.
Yeah.
You're just driving down the road and it's going there and it's going there and it's going there, and all your confidence has gone. And you get to around it and you don't even want to try and push it. And then you're into that other thing where you've got a car where you don't want to drive fast, but which is set up to be driven fast. And it just gets, grim.
It does. I just want to talk a little bit about experience and how important that is in your job, your line of work. Presumably, building up that database of other cars, dozens and dozens of other cars that behave in a certain way. That's a core part of it, isn't it? And being able to call on that database. Because certainly from our side, I think it's one of the most important things. How can you possibly assess a car when you haven't driven its predecessor and its competition?
Absolutely. Right? How do you know where it is?
Yeah.
What's good? What's bad?
Yeah. So when I first started doing vehicle dynamics, it was 1998 out of university, and the experienced people say, well, if you do this for 6 years, we might let you do it for yourself, and you think, really? 6 years, and what they're trying to get across is exactly what you've said, is the experience of doing the job and the kind of like the size of the topic, and just getting used to, I would say, you by experiencing lots of cars, but also doing it a lot. The way I look at it is you build like a reference model in your head. So because you have to, one of the differences is I drive the same car over and over and over and over again. And some of those changes can be really, really small. And what I don't get to experience is lots and lots of different cars. We benchmark a few, but I'm driving the same car over and over and over again. And you're driving lots and lots of different cars, which can be helpful.
And often only for a couple of hours at a time.
Yeah, so I've spent, 10,000 miles in whatever car, all these minute changes, and positioned it there, and then say, here you go, and you drive it for 2 hours and say, oh, I don't like that. We all have to evaluate the car within half an hour, I would say. So if we're doing a change on a car and we want to drive that change and subjectively evaluate what it's done, that's a half an hour, and then you've made a judgment, and you say, well, I don't like that, I don't like that, I like that. It happens that quickly.
Yeah.
So
what did you think when you're back in your JLR days, where you and your team spend not weeks or months but years developing a car, honing it to the finest possible edge that you can, making it as good can be, and then it ends up going to a bunch of motoring journalists, frankly none of whom are qualified in terms of official qualifications, in an environment they don't know because the launch is set in some lovely hot sunny location, and they drive the car for a couple of hours if you're lucky, and then produce a verdict which, if it appears in an important publication, may well have a material effect on the success of that car or otherwise. Other times you just sit there and go, actually guys, you don't know what you're talking about because you've not committed any kind of evaluation with sufficient rigor or time or understanding of what this car is trying to do.
I would say it's not happened to me. And so the only time I found that to be something that has affected a decision is when you've moved from launch to long-termer. So I think that because we spent so long in the cars, we've got we're more in tune with a long-termer
of course
assessment than we are with the first one, which is fine. But if you, I would say, if you come along to a launch and drive a car and 2 hours say, "Oh, it does this and that's rubbish," if I'm surprised by that, I think we've done a bad job.
Right?
Yeah. If you don't you? You already know.
So there's two ways of looking at that. One is that we know how good the car is. We do.
Yeah, of course you do.
And what we're balancing off is who's going to buy it and how much they're going to pay for it, and when we run out of time and all those other things.
And budget.
And budget. So no car on sale ever has been where the vehicle dynamicist or whoever's doing actually has gone, I can't do better than that.
Yeah, this is as good as it's going to be.
No one slapped themselves on the back and said, I'm
Done.
amazing.
It's perfect.
Never.
No.
So there's always a reason why you stop, basically.
Yeah.
So that's how I describe it.
Time and money usually being two of them.
We keep going. Someone says you have to stop now, and we go, all right. So
it's as good as we can get it.
Yeah,
for now. Yeah.
So there's that side of it where I don't think you're telling us a bit about the vehicle behaviour that we don't already know. And then the other side of it is that the company has to have done a good job in framing what the car is and who it's for and why it is what it is. And I've seen mistakes made where, you've driven a car without context and you get an opinion of it. But actually when you explain what that car is about and what it's for and what it's supposed to achieve, then it actually frames it differently. Because I've heard you say, Andrew, in the past that a good car is one that does the task it's supposed to do very, very well.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true in my mind, so...
and it doesn't matter whether it's a tiny car or supercar or a luxury car or whatever.
That's right, yeah. So, I look at Range Rover Sport SVR, the previous model, and F-Pace SVR. They were successful models, especially the Range Rover in terms of sales, and they never won the best steering, handling, whatever group test, and we didn't intend it to be that way because they're SUVs.
Yeah.
So I didn't. It's like, what's the point in making an SUV that can demonstrate it handles as well as a saloon car? What's the point in that? It's an SUV. If I wanted it to be a saloon car, I'd buy one.
But also you couldn't do it, could you? Because you're fundamentally limited by the laws of physics.
Yeah, or you could do it, but the price you pay would be super stiff ride or other things, So
you'd lose far more than you gain.
Exactly. So you have to say, well, at its core, this car is an SUV. I'm going to make a performance version of it, not I'm going to make a performance car. Or I'm going to make it in an SUV.
Absolutely. Yeah,
you do it the right way around.
Yeah, and you make it perform well without fundamentally changing its character. And going back to what you were talking about, cars having a certain sort of gait, a certain sort of way they want to be driven. So a Range Rover SVR is still a car that you're going to want to be able to lollop around in. And if it was just like pinging around, it'd be horrible, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that car's full of character in some ways because it's slightly flawed almost, where it's got so much power and torque, and it pitches.
It does like a speedboat.
It's like it's almost part of the fun, It makes it feel like, oh wow, they've put this massive engine in a Range Rover, and it feels like that.
I've said for a long time that engineers should start. We're at the stage now where engineers should start engineering in the right kind of faults into cars, faults that don't actually make you not want to drive the car, but just involve you a bit more, give the car a bit of flavour, a bit of character, because I guess there's one very objective school of thought which says that the fault-free car is a car you'd barely be aware of driving because it would just do it all for you.
Yeah,
and who wants that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do think there is something to be said for that, and it's incredibly difficult to kind of do because in the engineering world everything's better. So I heard I can't. The name escapes me. The guy who runs the Porsche GT models.
Andreas Preuninger.
Yeah, so
he might be listening, by the way.
Okay,
he does a regular listener. Yeah.
So I heard him. What was he doing in an interview where he was talking about this GT3 is better than the last one.
Yes.
It just is.
Yeah.
Everything it does is better than the last one, and that's true. You can't argue with it. Absolutely true. And that's how we do it. It rides better, it uses less fuel, it's faster, it sounds everything is better because that's just how things are going to progress. So to then say we're going to make this thing worse or flawed is really, really difficult to judge.
Of course it is.
Super, super hard. Yeah. And that's why I think
But better is almost by definition an objective assessment, isn't it? Better is faster, slower, more frugal, whatever. Whereas what I'm talking about is something you could never see on a specification sheet.
Yeah.
And it's something which just talks to the human being within us all who wants to be involved with the process of just why I love old cars.
Yeah.
It's why I've got a very small, unimportant collection of rubbish old cars because I just love how busy they make you. And I wish that modern cars would do, and I appreciate that I'm in a very small minority because most people just want cars to go from one place to the other, and too much of that would be incredibly annoying. And when I drive the Range Rover I've got parked outside home, I want to be as removed from the sensation of driving as I possibly can. But if I want out to enjoy driving a car, which is why I wish the A110 had a manual gearbox, and I know why it doesn't, and I appreciate that, but anything that gets you more involved with the process, even if it is technically not improving the car, even if it may actually technically be making it worse, for that sort of car and that sort of driving, that's what I want a car to do.
Yeah, and so how I think I would use, going all the way back to like evaluation or the training side of it, there's like 3 stages of that. And the first part is you drive a car and you're just determining what it's doing, so like, right, so when I steer, the car does this, when it goes over a bump, the car does this. So you're just determining what it's doing. And in my experience, when people who are used to doing vehicle evaluation, and journalists and engineers get together and they use and they just describe what the vehicle is doing, they tend to agree most of the time, because we can all feel what the car's doing. This is what it's doing. Everyone goes, oh yes. What then happens is you then have the do I like that or not conversation, and what would I like to do instead? And that's when all the arguments start, because everyone says this is what the car's doing, and everyone goes, yes it is.
We all agree on that.
We all agree on that. And someone will go, I don't like that, but I do like that, and I wish you did that instead. I don't want it to do that, and that's when you could introduce like flaws or different character or whatever you call it, to say, I wish you did that. And that's really hard for manufacturers to judge, because especially the less niche a car is, the harder that is, because of the number of people that might be driving it.
Yeah, the number of different opinions. Yeah.
So that's all. And in looping all the way back to training, then on-the-job training was firstly about that step 1. Can you determine what the car's doing?
Yes.
Can you feel that? So you can do... I started off with tyre testing. Tyre testing is the best place, because the tyre is from a vehicle dynamicist point of view, the tyre is the most important part of that chassis, because it can change everything, absolutely everything, and it's just one component. So if you go tyre testing and you're trying different tyres and compounds and constructions and those sorts of things, you don't know what's going to happen, and 2, anything can be affected. So you have to absolutely be able to tune in to everything that's gone on. So you need to be able. So because you're then telling the tyre manufacturer that's a good tyre, suits the car, that's a bad tyre, you can't go wrong. So you learn that first part of, I drove a car, we changed something, I drove it again, this is what changed, this is how it was different. So that's like a first step in terms of on-the-job training. I think I was lucky that I was started at Jaguar in 2000, and that was in the Ford era, where when they did the Focus, Mondeo and Focus, and the Parry Jones era, where they worked really hard on DNA, what was DNA of a car in terms of how you set out what you want the car to be, but also a system they called R202, which is the I wouldn't say process, but a structure behind how you assess a car. And they had a big process defined for how you did it. You could go to Belgium and be trained in how to do it, and it would like be structured in the way you would record it. And what it did was it took language out of that as much as possible, and so that you could say, when I go over this particular input on a proving round, how much does the body move? Is it a lot? Is it a little? Yeah. So it's trying to use terms to kind of like get everyone on the same page, as to just describing what the car did, and how it behaved and used as less language as possible. So it was like trying to put some kind of structure and science behind it. So I had the benefit of that, as well as, on the job with guys that have been doing it a long time. So you just kind of like hone your skill in that way.
Yeah.
And you just, I feel like I can do quite a good job of it. Because
I know you can.
But and I'm sure you do too. Because
in our own very different way.
But that principle is the same for you. Is surely you get in the car and you think, what's this doing? And I would say I listen to a car first. So like you get in the car, I've not been in this car before, or I've changed a component. I'm just going to drive, and I'm just going to let it talk to me. Like what's it telling me about what's different and what's changed?
Are you just allowing that to happen, or are you very, very consciously going, what's the steering doing now, this corner, or are you just sort of absorbing it, just letting it seep in?
I absorb first. And then I think something you touched on earlier, a road you've driven 1,000 times is really important.
Cool. I was going to ask about this.
So, so it's easier for engineers because they're working in a certain place, and they have roads they use all the time.
Yeah.
So you've
But they also have to be worthwhile roads, don't they?
Yes.
There's no point if they're dead straight and billy and smooth.
No, that's right. So I would say, I go and just drive the road I know, and I let the car talk to me, and I absorb what it's doing, because I know I've driven this corner 1,000 times, so I know what it takes to negotiate it. And when something different happens, it kind of like shouts at you. And then once I've done that, and I think, well, that's interesting, and then I might go and like ask questions of it. So you've absorbed information, and then you might go on like a dual carriageway and just sort of like what happens?
And sometimes you might also drive a bit badly. This is what I do. I want to sort of agitate a car on the way into a corner or something.
Yeah.
I just want to know how it responds. You're not necessarily trying to drive as skillfully as you can. Sometimes you just want to see what the car will do.
Yeah, and you'll see test drivers can be different to racing drivers in that so like a racing driver is trying to just make that car sit on the balance to go as fast as it can, and the test drivers got it completely out of control because they wanted to see what happened. And the skill sets are different. So for that, as you just
I think it's interesting that you go about it in exactly the same way that we do, or certainly that I do. I think it is so important to just drive the car, first of all, and actually not think too hard about it, and just let all that subjective stuff sort of flood your mind. Because I think if you get into a car and you think, right, I'm going to turn into this corner, and I'm going to think really hard about how far I've turned the steering wheel, and what input I've put into this control, and what the car is doing, I think you can massively overthink it, and I think that you can get unreliable results from thinking too hard about it, particularly if you haven't first just let the car, as you say, just so important, let the car talk to you. Because that general sense that you get is the most reliable, for want of a better word, data that you'll ever get from a car. Because that never changes. You're never going to drive it, one way and feel one set of things, and then do the same, and you'll feel completely different, because it won't. And then after that, you can start to interrogate it a bit more closely.
Yeah, so those first impressions really matter.
They really do.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, building a picture of that car immediately.
Yeah.
Like, because we all love talking about the A110, is what it does really well. An A110, as you say, you've done 20 mile an hour. So I've left home, pulled out my driveway, I'm doing 20 mile an hour, and it's immediately going. It's immediate. It feels light immediately.
Absolutely.
And I've barely been anywhere. So you think, well, how's that? Because how is it making? And it's just the sense of how it reacted to the road inputs, as small as they were, how it reacted to the small steering demand. It just feels light straight away.
And it does, doesn't it?
It really
you cannot.
does.
And that's the thing with, because cars are, generally speaking, so heavy these days, there's some really clever systems that they put on them. all the the active and passive torque steering, 4-wheel steering, and
active roll bars and all
active roll bars, very, very clever shock absorber systems and that sort of thing. And you can make a heavy car mimic to an extent the behavior of a lighter car. What you can't do, you may not agree with me, but what you cannot do is exactly what you're talking about. You can't make a heavy car feel light. You may be able to make it behave like a light one to a certain one, but it'll still feel like a heavy car. And I guess that's just physics, isn't it? And there's no way around that. You're never going to get a 2-ton SUV to feel like a Caterham. It's never going to happen, is it?
No, I don't think so. And I think that's, exactly as you said, you can objectively, on paper or through a series of performance definitions, say this heavy car did what that light car did, and you go, hey,
there you go, they're the same.
But when I drove that light car, my sensation of, well, this is light, was like immediate.
And this is fun, and this is,
and it's I think the A110 is defined by its lightness. It really is.
Yes, it really is.
And its magic trick is that there's not a downside. Like I've driven my car to the south of France.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it.
I've been to see David Pook at his home in Annecy. We did it as part of a European holiday. And that's the beauty of it. But but you can't. What I've not managed to do, because I've probably not thought about it hard enough, is determine objectively what we're feeling that makes it appear light.
I've thought about it too much.
Right. Okay.
Because what you conclude is that there is no conclusion. It's just something about the way that humans perceive things. But it doesn't. To me, I don't need to know how my television works. It's just one of those things that you know and you feel, and it's innate. And it's the fact that you feel these things rather than why it is, which to me is what matters. Really.
Enough A110.
Well, I'm talking about any car.
You never mention A110 on this podcast.
No, we don't. We try to avoid it. Well, listen, we've very quickly ran out of time. That was a good one because 50 odd minutes just flew by.
It did.
So
are we done?
We're done. So it was good fun to hear about how engineers go about doing this job. And actually, I think journalists came out of it in reasonably good form.
I have to say that I think you've probably been quite kind to us.
No, I don't think so, because I think
if we came on your podcast, it might be quite good.
Luckily for you, I don't have one.
But I think the takeaway for me, though, is that journalists and engineers, as long as we're representative of our groups, are actually quite close together. But we just have different opportunities within our roles, don't we?
Yeah.
And different objectives. But broadly speaking, the way we go about doing what we do is really quite similar.
Yeah, we tend to, I think we tend to get along. Probably for that reason, don't we? And
we do.
Like lots of engineers like me. I know lots of the media for the same reason, and you kind of get along because there's a lot of commonality. Isn't there?
We're all just car people, aren't we?
Yeah. And then I think I've heard you say before, Andrew, that the reason you do this is not for driving; it's because you want to write.
Yes.
Yeah, and the same for me. I do this because I've got a car that drives a certain way and I want it to drive another way, and I'm fascinated by how to make that happen, and the driving part gets me there.
Yeah.
And so we have like two different ultimate passions, but a shared core.
I mean, I love driving, but I love communicating.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If I had a choice of driving or communicating, I'll stop driving immediately. It's probably a terrible thing to admit on the car podcast, but I just love being the messenger.
Yeah. And I can't help but bury myself in a problem or some data that says, or understanding, this car behaves like this. Why is that? That's I'm off.
You have to get stuck in there.
Yeah.
That's what I want to go and do.
And you won't stop until you've found out.
I want to understand, learn. It could be just understand, or it could be actually improve and make better. But that's the core, and then the driving and evaluating part gets me there.
Well, listen, we need to wrap this one up.
Thank you, David. That was terrific.
That was great. Thank you for your time. Thanks for coming in. Check out Life 110 if you have an Alpine, any kind of Alpine, it seems. If you're watching on YouTube, please just subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're just listening via a podcast app, make sure you follow the show. And in return, we'll be back again next week.